ọmọ aráyé ẹ wá gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí tún lè gidi gan ọ̀rọ̀ yìí mà lè ó gbẹnu tán. ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ ńlá èyí o. ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ bójú wò ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ bójú tó tá a fà sókè tó yí dó borí bọ́bá ayé orí kò ṣẹ̀yìn ọlọ́run bọ́ọ̀mù aráyé bá ṣiṣẹ́ ibi tán wọ́n á tún mọ̀ ní pẹ́jálẹ̀ jáǹjẹ sanra olódùmarè ó máa fi àkọ́kàn jẹ̀dá ènìyàn ló sọ̀ra wọn dá tún ní dá ẹ máa wí pọ̀lẹ́ ẹ máa wí pọ̀lẹ́ ènìyàn mọ̀lẹ́ ẹ máa.
ilé ayé yeye tó mo kí gbogbo ojú tó wò mí káàkiri ayé ẹ wá nǹkan fìdílé tàbí kẹ́ fìdílé nǹkan ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ẹ wà ní UK ṣé kí ni mo kí yín kú oríire ṣá torí pé ìlú tófin wà ò lẹ́wà ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ẹ wà ní US ẹ jẹ́ n kẹ́yìn náà kú oríire wípé ìlú tófin wà ò lẹ́wà ẹ ráwà tá a wà Nàìjíríà à ń fomi lò bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o ìlú yìí ló jẹ́ pé n tó lóṣèlú bá ṣe àṣegbé ni a máa wọn ìlú foreign countries míì tèmi mọ̀ ìtí mo ti dé rí àti ìtí mò ń gbọ́ sétí mo rí wípé kò sí tó kàn wọ́n pẹ̀lú ipò tó wà ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tó ṣẹ̀ ló jìyà ẹ̀. Timothy Adégòkè wọ́n pa ọmọkùnrin náà ní fọnáfọṣù wọ́n fẹ́ da ojú ẹjọ́ yẹn rú tí kì í bá ṣe divine intervention almost 2 years ní tá a ti wà lẹ́yìn ẹ̀ tó bá di November á pé 2 years ọdún adúpẹ́ lọ́dọ̀ Ọlọ́run pé eléyìí ò di November inú May tá a wà yìí ni wọ́n dájọ́ ní agbára Ọlọ́run ńṣe láti ìmọ̀ date ṣùgbọ́n kì í ṣe tí ó jìnnà torí pé màmá sọ fún wa ní last court pé within 1 month tí kì bá wá ṣe pọ́lọ́ ń lọ bá wa gbé àwọn tí wọ́n kájú ẹ̀ jáde mo fọlọ́n búra kéèsì yìí ìbákan they will have swept it under the carpet torí pé I am almighty lẹni tó ṣẹ̀ ni àwọn tó ti ṣúṣẹ́ mọ́ lórí ẹ wo tó ṣẹlẹ̀ nílùú òyìnbó ẹ wo tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní United Kingdom àwọn táwa ń rí bíi I am mighty ní Nàìjíríà ó sì wà wá mọ́mọ́ lọ́mọ nígbà tó jẹ́ pé ìjọba amúnisìn làwọn máa ń ṣe tiwọn wọ́n bá ti dolówó ará àdúgbò aráàlú ò jọ wọ́n lójúmọ́ kódà ẹbí wọn ò jọ wọ́n lójúmọ́ ìyà ò bá àjà aráàlú pa kò sí tó kàn wọ́n àwọn ò lójú àánú mọyì ẹni tó wà lórí social media lójoojúmọ́ tó ń tọrọ owó pé ìgbésí ayé àwọn ẹlòmíì ó fẹ́ ṣe kidney transplant ó fẹ́ ṣe ó ní kidney problem ní tìtorí 2, 3, 4 million ló ṣe dèrò ọ̀run tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ pé authentic ní tára wọn yẹn ò yá lóòótọ́ tó bá máa sọ wọ́n ní problem àwọn wọ́n ti ní gbogbo ohun tó máa ná àwọn 4 million àwọn senator yẹn dẹ̀ ń gbọ́ àwọn minister wa ń gbọ́ federal government ń gbọ́ àwọn governors ń gbọ́ àwọn olórí tí wọ́n tọ́ lè ràyàn pàjẹ́ ń gbọ́ they prefer to spend that money on young ladies ní club than kí wọ́n fi ṣàánú àwọn èèyàn wọ́n wá nífẹ̀ẹ́ sí kí wọ́n máa mú àwọn èèyàn ní ẹrú láti lọ ṣe bó ṣe wù wọ́n now ike èkéré madu ó mọ́mọ́ ọlọ́mọ láti ìlú wọn ìlú ọmọ ìlú kan náà ni wọ́n ó pin that ṣebí pò ń wà nípò ó parọ́ fọmọ ọlọ́mọ pé òun fẹ́ lọ ràn lọ́wọ́ nílùú òyìnbó ó sì mú ọmọ yìí ó gbé lọ ìlú òyìnbó ó gbé lọ London nígbò débẹ̀ ló la ohun tóun fẹ́ wá ṣe fọmọ iṣẹ́ ló promise ọmọ ṣùgbọ́n gbòòdọ́hùn ọmọ di pé wọ́n fẹ́ gba ìyà lára wọn ni ẹjọ́ mi mọ̀ bóyá mi mọ̀ pé màá sọ̀rọ̀ débẹ̀ tó bá parí fídíò bí tọmọ yẹn ti ń lọ sí inú police station tó ti ń lọ report bẹ́ẹ̀ bá lè bá wà ẹ bá mi wà ọmọ yẹn wá fi style wọ́n ti mú sínú ilé wọ́n ti tọ́jú ẹ̀ wọ́n ti fún lóúnjẹ wọ́n ti ṣe gbogbo nǹkan tó yẹ kán ṣe fún ọmọ náà accept ó ń wò wọ́n wá bó dé ọ̀dọ̀ dókítọ̀ wọ́n ṣẹ̀ wá láwùn fún kódà wọ́n mú lọ sọ́dọ̀ ọmọ wọn tó ní kidney problem wọ́n jọ ya fọ́tò káwọn èèyàn lè rò pé bóyá ọ̀rẹ́ àtọ̀rẹ́ ni wọ́n. ọmọ wò wọ́n pé kí ni ìtumọ̀ gbogbo eléyìí ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ ní wá ṣe létà wọ́n ní láti láwùn fún dókítọ̀ yẹn láwùn fún wọ́n láwùn fún mi mọ̀ bóyá tó dà pé dókítọ̀ gan ló túbọ̀ help wọn torí wọ́n ló dókítọ̀ bí ọmọ léèrè were you aware pé kan báyìí nọ́mbà wá ṣe fún ẹ and how old are you ọmọ bá sọ underage ọmọ yìí ò tí tó 18 gba dókítọ̀ rí bẹ́ẹ̀ mo rò pé ó ló facilitate bọ́mọ ṣe escape ọmọ yẹn lọ sí police station lọ report torí pé kì í ṣe irú police station Nàìjíríà ṣé kí n sòdodo kan fún wa wàláì mo tún pe wàláì sí kéèsì Adédoyin pẹ̀lú Timothy ọlọ́wọ́n ọba ìbá má lójútùú kálá fi dídà ọlọ́pàá nìkan tàbáwọn tó prosecute látọ̀dọ̀ ọlọ́pàá ṣé ẹ rántí nígbà táwọn ọlọ́pàá ní Òṣogbo tí wọ́n kọ́kọ́ dìde gbàrà tọ́rọ̀ yẹn kọ́ ṣẹlẹ̀ tí wọ́n dìde tí wọ́n gbé Adédoyin ṣé ẹ rántí pé nínú police station custody yẹn náà nínú police custody yẹn náà l'Adédoyin ti ṣe voice note ló ti ṣe fídíò tá ń gbà láyè ṣùgbọ́n ọlọ́pàá Nàìjíríà ni wọ́n tún gbé d'Àbújá ó tún dẹ̀ tán fi jíìpù criminal ó tún dẹ̀ tán fi jíìpù or let me say suspect you are not a criminal sir ẹ jẹ́ sọ pé suspect a suspect wọ́n tún fi mọ́tò jíìpù wọn wọ́n tún fi gbé wá sí court in fact wọ́n tún accord ẹ̀ ní respect Nigerian police kódà níbi tí wọ́n tún protect ẹ̀ dé àwa tá a tún sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ẹ̀ wọ́n tún fi ọlọ́pàá top high ranking police wọ́n tún fi wá wa kiri to the extent that wọ́n sọ pé ni o wọ́n sọ pé inspector general ló ránṣẹ́ pé kí wọ́n lọ gbé wa wá Oríyọmí nìkan lọ́lọ́run fi ṣàánú àwa tó kù. I couldn't imagine that is Nigeria for you ni mo ṣe kẹ́yìn tẹ́ wà ní òyìnbó tó fi wà mo ṣe kí yín kú oríire ẹni tí wọ́n fi ẹ̀sùn apààyàn kàn ẹni tí wọ́n fi ẹ̀sùn wípé ọmọ ẹ̀ ti sá lọ ọmọ kìíní òṣìṣẹ́ méjì àti fámìlì ẹ̀ kan àtàbúrò ẹ̀ àbẹ̀àtọ́mọ ẹ̀ wọ́n ti sá lọ àwọn mẹ́rẹ̀ẹ̀rin sá lọ àwọn mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta sá lọ wọ́n wá wọn ọlọ́pàá Nàìjíríà ò rí kan ṣe sí yẹn àwa táwa ń rìpọ́ọ̀tù ni wọ́n rí gbé wá ni wọ́n ń kọ lẹ́tà sí ká máa bọ̀ ni wọ́n fọlọ́pàá ránṣẹ́ sí látàbújá kan wá gbé wá bet àwọn tí wọ́n sá lọ wọn kí ẹ pa wọn for you to know the kind of country táwa. ọjọ́ kan mo jáde bí mo wá sọ̀rọ̀ pé ọlọ́pàá Nàìjíríà ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ sọ pé wọn ò ẹ̀yin ọlọ́pàá Nàìjíríà wọ́n ní kò sí written document kankan tó lè fi hàn pé lóòótọ́ lẹ̀ wá wàrà bí ngbọ̀nà rí wọn Ghana ẹ̀mọ́ tó fọ́ níjù ìjọ́ kejì ní Nigeria police publish ẹ̀ sí ààyè kékeré kan báyìí ní newspaper wípé àwọn declare àwọn wanted ẹnìkan sẹ́ndí ẹ̀ sí mo fẹ́ rẹ́rìn pàjọ yẹn pé sí Nigeria government sí Nigeria police. That is the kind of country táwa irú policing ta ní nìyẹn irú security ta ní nìyẹn Nàìjíríà irú judicial system ta ní nìyẹn Nàìjíríà. àwọn ọmọ yẹn sì wọn sọ̀rọ̀ pa wọn rárá o ọlọ́pàá tiẹ̀ láwọn rí wọn o special protection tún wà lórí Adédoyin gbà yẹn kó tó di pé Ọlọ́run bá wa ṣe ẹni tó kádùlù Ọlọ́run bá wa pèsè ẹ̀ Barrister Falana àwa go safe àwa tá a jẹ́ mídíà àwa go safe ṣùgbọ́n as soon as tó ti rí tí bàbá yẹn ti wọlé báyìí ó parí system yẹn change kó tó di pé Ọlọ́run ṣe wọ́n gbé kéèsì yẹn wá sóṣogbo padà otherwise ọba ti parí ẹ̀ l'Àbújá tipẹ́tipẹ́ àrẹ odidi ṣéwù odidi chief high and mighty Adédoyin lè bá sọ̀rọ̀ wọn ọba ti parí kéèsì yẹn ní l'Àbújá but fortunately for us bàbá bá wa dá sí ọlọ́run ní kí wọ́n gbé kéèsì yẹn padà wá sóṣogbo Òṣogbo ọ̀hún sọ fẹ́ kí bàbá yẹn dúró irú láìfù tá a lò Nàìjíríà nìyẹn Nàìjíríà ni olódodo ti ń jìyà tẹ́ni tó ṣe àtúmọ̀ lọ láyọ̀ àtàlàfíà Nàìjíríà ló jẹ́ pé tí wọn ò bá ṣọ́ra pàápàá ẹni tó jẹ́ pé òun gangan lolódodo òun ni wọ́n cheat tó mẹ́jọ lọ police station ẹ ti gbọ́rú ẹ̀ rí tó jẹ́ pé tó mẹ́jọ lọ á tún fi ẹni tó ṣẹ̀ sílẹ̀ sọ ẹni tó ṣẹ̀ á tún fẹ́ tó mẹ́jọ lọ lẹ́sọ̀hún èmi ti rí ni kódò ti ṣẹlẹ̀ sí mi rí tó jẹ́ mi náà tún tì mọ́lé gbàrà tó ti yọ náà tó gba chief náyú mo bá ṣiṣẹ́ ni torí pé mo mòfin tó dè mí mo mòfin tó tú mi I went to police station wọ́n dẹ̀ dìde wọ́n lọ mú àṣẹ wọn mẹni tán ní kán lọ mú ọmọ póhùn ni as soon as that tó jọ station ẹ̀lẹ́ tán rí bẹ́ẹ̀ mọ́nsà chief náyú ká tó mọ tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ó wọ ọ̀dọ̀ DPO lọ straight níbẹ̀ náà ti parí ẹ̀ kan tó wọlé wá bá mi pé ngbọ́ you did this you did that they say you said this it's a threat to life wọ́n tún ṣe charge mi fún threat to life nìyẹn kó tó di kọ́ lọ ṣàánú mi mo sì rò nítọ̀hún ládùúgbò mi dọ́là kéèsì yẹn bó ṣe die down nìyẹn èyí owó mi ò rí gbà dọ́là ó chance mi gbé but lẹ́nìí mo dúpẹ́ fọlọ́hún ó wò mí lókè sí ni ṣẹ́ni ọlọ́run bá gbèjà àgbà yóò ní dádúró that is the kind of Nigeria tá a wà our judicial system is porous even wọn inú mi dùn àwọn olóṣèlú gbọ́ gbàgbọ́ nú ara wọn mọ́ lórí judicial system wọn àwọn gbọ́ believe fún judicial system now of Nigeria ẹni wọ́n bá ń gbéra wọn lọ kóòtù lórí àdìbò ẹ tí rí tán ti máa bastardize àwọn judge wa pé kí ni rubbish náà máa dá highest bidder carries the vote bọ́yẹ̀ ṣe nìyẹn so irú life ta wà nìyẹn ó wá yà mí lẹ́nu ó tọ́ọ̀chì àti mi gbà tí mo gbọ́ pé wọ́n ti dájọ́ fẹ́kẹ̀rẹ́ màdùnmí ní what this is a judicial system that is working ìjọ wo lọ́rọ̀ ṣẹlẹ̀ bóyá late last year or early this year ní kéèsì yẹn ṣẹlẹ̀ kò wọ́n fi gbá kan bọ̀ kan nú wọ́n ò fún ní preferential treatment even for your information mo tún ti ń gbọ́ táwọn higher mighty ẹgbẹ́ tó ti sọ fún Nigeria government pé kán lọ bẹ King Charles o kán lọ bá sọ̀rọ̀ kó release èkéré bẹ́bí kọ́kọ́ ní Nàìjíríà ni kò sí jọ́ọ̀jì tó máa pronounce kò sí jọ́ọ̀jì náà Nàìjíríà yìí tó máa pronounce judgement ìlérú ẹ̀ lórí a whole former deputy senate president George Kawadokwa ló ń dá lẹ́jọ́ they are above Nigerian law. That is why we don't have rule of law. We don't have constitution. We only have rule of law in Nigeria. Postulation lásán la ní ní constitution. For a law to become constitution, it must bind on every citizen of that country. Kì í ṣe Nigeria o, kò bind wa o. Àwọn kan wà tó ti above law. Irú àwọn Babangida, irú àwọn Ekéremadu yìí náà. Irú àwọn Mr. President àtàwọn míì gbogbo wọn yẹn ti above law ntọ́ bá ṣe àṣegbé ní Nàìjíríà mọ̀ye olóṣèlú tó kó sẹ́wọ̀n ní bíi 2 years ago tó wọ́n lọ́sẹ̀ méjì tó ti dá wọn padà because they are above the law ìtọ́ ṣe wọ́n rí pé kò sọ náà ta lè gbégbá àfi kẹ́ ẹ dẹ́wọ̀n yẹn ńgbọ́n rẹ̀ ti dẹ́wọ̀n kò gbé wọ́n ṣe pápápápù kẹ́ tó mọ tó ṣẹlẹ̀ wọ́n ti release gbogbo wọn ọjọ́ sọ̀kalúwà nù wọn wọ́n release gbogbo wọ́n tún ti win election àwọn ìyàrá kí ló kọ̀ wọ́n tún ti win election that is Nigeria for you but now ẹ wo case Adedoyin ẹ wo tó lọ́n fi ṣàánú otherwise nígbà ìkẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ ọba tí ẹ̀dá orúkọ case Adedoyin tí ọgbà àbátí ọgbà ìwò Ọlọ́run ló máa dájọ́ àti gbàgbé ẹ̀ nìyẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ torí pé Ọlọ́run ṣetán láti mú dájọ́ òdodo wá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ó ní kí Ọlọ́run bá wa mú bàbá Fẹ́mi Fálànà kọ́ Ọlọ́run bá wa mú wá sínú ẹ̀ otherwise ọba ti gbá dànù torí ẹ̀ ni wọ́n ṣe ń pààyàn gbé nílùú ìtọ́kànṣe balẹ̀ torí ẹ̀ ló jẹ́ pé àwọn higher mighty nílùú ìṣeéṣe tó ṣe ń ṣe gbé case Adedoyin almost 2 years ní 13 bàbọ̀ for you to know pé olówó ṣohun gbogbo tán Nàìjíríà yà ní ó jọmọ tálíkà ní ìgbà tẹ́jọ́ ìkọ́kọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ the first court tó máa kọ́ lọ tádédoyin máa kọ́ àpíà jíìpù ẹ̀ ló gbé wá ó dẹ̀ tún láyà ó tún sọ fún Gbadé pé àbúrò ẹ̀ ló kú tó pariwo ìwọ náà máa tó kú dànù sóhun òkúkú mọ̀ kó máa le tó yìí òwúre o ìjọ wo lè kéde máa dùṣẹ́ o ọjọ́ wo ló bẹ̀rẹ̀ o wàláì wọ́n ti dájọ́ ọdún mẹ́sàn-án àtoṣù mẹ́jọ àbúrá many months lọ fún that is UK for you ibi tí judicial process judicial system tó ti work out ibi tí wọn kì í fẹ́ tọmọnìyàn dùnyàn irrespective of your grade of your status or of any place you might come from ó lẹ́rí yẹn tó bá lọ jẹ́ UK yẹn ní kéèsì Adédoyin ti ṣẹlẹ̀ I am too sure head will have rolled orí àti jábọ́ gan lọ́rùn àwọn èèyàn gbogbo orú táwọn ọmọlẹ́yìn ẹ̀sán gbé ẹ̀ jáde tó wá halẹ̀ yẹn gbó all of them will have been behind the bars but who wants to beg the cat but we thank God wípé Ọlọ́run ọba dúró tán ẹ jẹ́ ká wo ti kéèsì Ekéremàdù yìí ká fi kọ́gbọ́n ní Nàìjíríà gbogbo lawyers tó bá ń wò mí ẹ jẹ́ ká wo kéèsì Ekéremàdù yìí ká fi kọ́gbọ́n gbogbo judges tó bá ń wò mí ẹ wo kéèsì Ekéremàdù yìí ká ẹ fi kọ́gbọ́n kẹ́yìn náà dẹ̀ decide pé látẹ̀ni from me the changing must begin look at kéèsì jọ́wọ́ sí jọ́wọ́ kò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ Nàìjíríà ló ti ṣẹlẹ̀ sá Ekéremàdù kẹ̀ òun ló tún máa fi bọ́ ìyẹn lẹ̀sọ̀ ìgbésí ọgbà ẹ̀wọ̀n ó máa lọ tìmọ́lé ni àbí báwo wọ́n ti ẹ̀ máa fọ́ọ̀sì ṣé ó ti ẹ̀ sì lè ṣé bọ́ọ̀yẹ̀ sì lè wà láyé mọ́ṣá torí wọ́n ti fọ́ọ̀sì ẹ̀ wọ́n ti yọ kidney lára ẹ̀ bí right kidney náà máa yọ bí left kidney wọ́n á ti yọ kò dẹ̀ sí police station tó lè wọ Nàìjíríà tó lè lọ report wọ́n á ní kó gbẹ́nu ẹ̀ sọ́hùn ìwọ́n ayé bá tiẹ̀ ti ń gbọ́ pé which person you say you can report Senator Ekéremàdù okay come back tomorrow ẹ̀kọ́ lẹ̀ wọ́n lè láwọn oníwèé wọ́n lè ní kó síwèé táwọn máa fi kọ́ èmi ti rí ni wọ́n lè ní kó sanwó òwe kó sanwó báírò wọ́n dẹ̀ ya mú wọn kọ̀rọ̀ kan lẹ̀ wọ́n ní kó padà wá lẹ́ni padà wá lọ́la ń gbò bá sùn fún rẹ̀ ní òní wá mọ́ báwo òbí ẹ̀ bá dẹ̀ jẹ́ tó lẹ́sẹ̀ tí wọ́n bá gbé lọ́ọ̀yà dìde wọ́n frustrate kéèsì yẹn kò dìgbà ọlọ́pàá bá kan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ kẹ́ ẹ tó rí nǹkan tẹ́ máa sọ ní kóòtù èhó Ekéremàdù òun lẹ ṣe ń gbọ́ lẹ́nìí nígbà tán dájọ́ yẹn kódà àwọn kan ti sọ sẹ́nẹ̀tì sí pé the sentence of Ekéremàdù will cause problem in Nigeria. Could you imagine that? kì í ṣe system wa o àìlè yóò ràn yànṣẹ́ o wọn ò wojú ṣe o and it should be a deterrent to all our politicians in tó ṣẹlẹ̀ yìí kó jẹ́ ẹ̀kọ́ fún gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n rò pé alágbára ayé làwọn Ọlọ́run ò lè mú àwọn ẹ jẹ́ kó jẹ́kọ̀ fún wọn ṣé bí dìsẹ́bẹ̀ Ekéremàdù yìí la gbọ́ pé àwọn ọmọ skul kan wọ́n kóra ọjọ́ gbá research wọ́n dẹ̀ rí solution sí ọ̀rọ̀ kidney problem yìí wọ́n wá sọ pé òkè àwọn fẹ́ dá center kan sílẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé one wọ́n lè transplant kidney two ó lè prevent kidney stones at any other kidney diseases wọ́n gbé proposal yẹn torí pé ọmọ ìlú Ekéremàdù ni wọ́n be their representative from in the Senate House wọ́n gbé proposal yẹn lọ bá ó dẹ̀ rí ó commend wọn ó gba proposal yẹn ó fi gba millions of naira tí wọ́n nídìí jáde lọ́dọ̀ ìjọba Ekéremàdù kówó yẹn sápò kò bò rárá àwọn yẹn wá padà wá wọ́n wá ń gbà wọ́n bí kan ti ń gbà research pé bó ni ìwé ìwọlẹ̀ sí nìkan ni wọ́n sọ pé àwọn ti release bí ó yẹ 80% fún Ekéremàdù náà ó wá kẹ́ni fẹ́ fèsì ẹ̀ bóyá tó bá jẹ́ kí wọ́n kọ́ kíní yẹn ń gbà yẹn bóyá bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ìbá ti treat ọmọ ẹ̀ ọmọ tó gbé lọ lóyìnbó tí ò rí dónà fún ìwà wọn ò lè jẹ́ kán rí dónà ẹni mélòó ló tara wọn soríire ẹni mélòó ló tara wọn ríwòsàn tó máa voluntarily sọ pé yá mo fẹ́ release kidney kò sí náà ṣe lọ kan ọmọ ọlọ́mọ kí wọ́n fagídí gba kidney ara ẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n gbà tó jẹ́bi tó tàn lọ kì í ṣe bí tó ti ń fi irọ́ lẹ kọ́bọ̀ lójú kì í ṣe bí tí wọ́n ti ń yí òfin ìlú padà wọ́n sọ òdodo mo fẹ́ kẹ́ ẹ jókòó ní pẹ̀tẹ́pẹ̀rẹ̀ kẹ́ ẹ jájọ bá wọn dé London kẹ́ wá lọ wo báwo ni wọ́n ṣe dá ẹjọ́ yẹn fún Ekéremàdù. Ó yá ẹjẹ́ àjọ lọ.
ló bá dé níbi ká ṣètò ìwé ìrìnnà láìsí kọ́nu ńkọ́. ọ̀gá ni Fox Excellence Able Travels and Tour Limited. ṣé wọ́n ní ẹṣin tó ṣíwájú ni ló gba fe. ká ṣètò ìwé ìrìnnà lọ sílùú Mecca òun Jerusalem. ṣètò iléègbé lókè òkun. iṣẹ́ kíkọ́ kíkẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lókè òkun. pàápàá ètò fún wíwọlé sílé ẹ̀kọ́ American University Mauritius. fún diploma 2 to 4 years degree program àtàwọn ẹ̀kọ́ míì. tó o sì lè lò ó láti parí ẹ̀kọ́ rẹ ní USA, UK, Malta, Philippines, Italy. níbi táwọn ọgbà ilé ẹ̀kọ́ wọ̀nyí wà. Fox Excellence Able Travels and Tour Limited ló ń bá ní ṣe é nírọ̀rùn. wọ́n gba òǹtẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba pẹ̀lú àwọn àjọ tó ń rí sí ìrìn àjò ojú òfurufú. wọ́n ti ṣe é fọkàn tán. ìgbésẹ̀ wọn yára kọ́kọ́. kàn sí wọn lónìí lólú iléeṣẹ́ wọn tó wà ní nọ́mbà 23B Shokeni Road, Òkè Ìjẹun, Abẹ́òkúta, Ògùn State. ẹ tún lè kàn sí wọn ní www.excellencetravels.com.pa tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n lórí àwọn ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ wọn. Philippines +639 693 550 167. Mauritius +230 584 620 96. ẹ sì lè kàn sí wọn lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ ti Nàìjíríà +234 905 505 2472. Fox Excellence Able Travels and Tours. àràbà ní bàbá ẹni abálábà ní bàbá.
pé ìlera tẹ̀rí yẹn òun gangan lóògùn ọ̀rọ̀.
ǹjẹ́ ẹ tiẹ̀ mọ̀ pé ká gbápá kó ṣeé gbé.
kí a nọ̀sẹ̀ kó ṣe náà. ìyẹn gangan ni wọ́n ń pè ní mọ̀ wà lóní kanpo àlàáfíà tayọ.
ìyá ìwà gbọ́ nípa ilé-iṣẹ́ OEAR and Shrub Spices.
tí Ọlọ́run jogún àṣírí tewétegbò fún láti fi wá ìyanjú sí àìlera ẹni. irú àrùn wo ló ń bá ọ fíra. ṣé jẹjẹrẹ ni,
ìdákọ́lẹ̀,
ikọ́ àti àrùn míì tí ò ṣeé fojú rí. ẹ má wúrò ògùn jìnnà mọ́. ó yá ní ilé-iṣẹ́ OEAR and Shrub Spices.
àwọn oògùn wa ní ọṣẹ kòkòrò,
PNEN herbal tea, Fevoso,
PNEN cream àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. fún ìbéèrè àti àlàyé lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ kàn sí ilé-iṣẹ́ wa tó wà ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn ní
OEA compound along Old Ondo Benin Expressway adjacent Bena Farm Junction beside Ogun State College of Health Technology Ilese Ìjẹ̀bú, Ogun State. tàbí ní ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó block 412 flat 2 opposite Old Olympic office ilé-ìwé bus stop Jakonde Estate Òkèàfà Ìsọlọ̀. ẹ̀lú wọn rèé +234 915 049 1169 tàbí +234 818 653 6480. OEA Herbs and Shrub Spices ló wí pé
má fi ìlera rẹ ṣeré, rí i dájú pé o wà lóní kàńpé.
The transplant went ahead. There is no evidence that the donor has been given the necessary aftercare. It is not necessary for me to make a finding as to whether you exploited the donor. But what is clear is that you learned from your experience that it was possible to manipulate and corrupt the regulatory system by using a fabricated affidavit, by lying about your relationship with the donor, and by coaching the donor to lie. You, Senator Ike Ekramadu, and you, Dr. Beatrice Ekramadu, have a daughter, Sonia. She is very ill. She is suffering from FSGS, nephrotic syndrome. She needs a kidney transplant. Everybody has enormous sympathy for her and for the impact on each of you seeing your daughter's suffering. Sonia's uncle, Diwe Ekramadu, knew Abina Abeta from medical school. He got in touch. Abina Abeta offered to help find a donor. A possible donor was identified. By law, his name may not be published. I will call him C. C grew up in a village where he had no electricity or running water. He left school at the age of 15 and he went to Lagos where he sold phone accessories from a wheelbarrow in a market. He was earning about 3,500 naira a day, the equivalent of just £7. Tests in Nigeria showed that his blood group was the same as Sonia. He agreed to come to the UK. I am sure that he did not at any point agree to donate a kidney to Sonia altruistically. There was no reason why he should do so. He was not related to your family. He did not know Sonia or any other member of your family. Nothing was put in place to secure his future healthcare needs if he donated a kidney. The wealth and power inequality and disparity between you and C could not be more marked. You, Ike Ekremadu, are a senator in Nigeria's National Assembly. You have held high political office. You had many staff, including domestic staff, maids, chefs and drivers. You own multiple properties around the globe. There is evidence of as many as 40. More than £400,000 went into your bank account over a 6-month period. By contrast, C was unable to afford a £25 fare to travel from Lagos to Abuja. You each conspired together to bring C to the UK in order to exploit him. You all knew that was unlawful. You, Ike Ekremadu, had been part of the legislature that had introduced the law that made that conduct a criminal offence in Nigeria. You, Abina Abeta, secured the visa. You did so by telling...
Mo fẹ́ ká gbọ́ ibẹ̀ yẹn dáadáa. Mo fẹ́ ká gbọ́ ibi tọ́mọkùnrin yẹn sọ. Ó ní you, Eke Ekremadu, you were part of legislators in Nigeria. You are part of those who legislate on that law in Nigeria. Yet, you knew it, that what you were about to do was wrong. Yet, you committed that offense. Ọlọ́mọ yẹn a chance ẹ̀ torí pé owó wà lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀. In 6 months, kò less than £400,000 tó wọnú àkáǹtì Ekremadu lọ́sẹ̀ oṣù mẹ́fà. Ọlọ́mọ yẹn kàn ti wíbarò ń ta phone accessories lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. O ti wá rí i pé ọmọ tó lè chance ni. Gbogbo ohun tí wọ́n ń sọ yìí kò sí lọ́ọ̀yà kò sí jọ́ọ̀jì tó rówó ẹ̀ Nàìjíríà. Ìyí tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ nílùú yìí tí wọ́n fi ń mú jẹ gbé gbogbo ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tán bá ti ṣe mẹ̀kúnnù gbogbo ìyàtọ̀ fi jẹ mẹ̀kúnnù àwọn politician àwọn olówó yẹn. Irú ẹ̀ náà l'Adedoyin ṣe ó ti rò pé kò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́lu òyìnbó. Ṣé bí irú ẹ̀ náà ló ṣẹlẹ̀ tí wọ́n gbé òkú ọmọ ọlọ́mọ tó lọ sọ dànù síbì kan ńgbà ọlọ́mọ àmú wọn náà fi dúfẹ́ wọn yìí. Ohun tí wọ́n ṣe Nàìjíríà tí wọ́n mú jẹ gbé ó ní jọ́ọ̀jì yìí sọ yìí o lòun against nílùú tiwọn yìí. Máa bá mi gbé lọ máa bá gbé níṣó ẹ jẹ́ á máa gbádùn ẹ̀ lọ.
You each conspired together to bring C to the UK in order to exploit him. You all knew that was unlawful. You, Ike Ekremadu, had been part of the legislature that had introduced the law that made that conduct a criminal offence in Nigeria. You, Abina Abeta, secured the visa. You did so by telling a lie that C and Sonia were cousins, the same lie that you had told in respect of you and your donor. You also secured a fabricated affidavit testifying to their relationship as cousins, just as you had done for your transplant. You asked the Ekremadu family to pay C a fee of 3.5 million naira. The jury rejected your account that the fee was for his loss of earnings. The fee was paid by you, Ike Ekremadu. The jury rejected your account that you knew the fee was a scam and that no reward would ever be paid to C. The evidence suggests that a corrupt relationship was established with a member of Royal Free staff, an interpreter who agreed to help with, quotes, coaching the boy, end quotes, and to provide the, quotes, relevant interpretation, end quotes. You, Ike Ekramadu, were instrumental in establishing and controlling that corrupt relationship. The clinicians at the Royal Free Hospital once again believed the untruthful account that the donor and recipient were cousins. There was, however, a concern about the risk to C, given his age and his ethnicity. After the doctors interviewed him, they were concerned that he was not sufficiently mature and motivated to be an organ donor. This time, the transplant was not approved. There was no report to the safeguarding team and no report to the police, despite the indicators that the donor was a victim of trafficking. Those indicators included the tenuous nature of the relationship between C and Sonia, the limited evidence to support that relationship, and C's clear lack of understanding about the process, and also his reaction to being told that he was at the hospital to discuss a kidney donation. In the course of the trial, Hugh Davis KC suggested that a lesson to be learned from this case is that clinicians must be alive to the risk of trafficking and report cases like this when concerns arise. I entirely agree. After the decision had been made that the transplant would not go ahead, there was a sinister development. A consultant nephrologist and another man examined C at the place where he was being kept. It is not necessary to make a finding as to the true purpose of that examination, but it is easy to understand why C believed that he was going to be taken back to Nigeria for the transplant to be conducted there. On the 3rd of May, when C was due to return to Nigeria, he ran away. He spent 2 nights sleeping rough. On the 5th of May, exactly a year ago, he attended Staines police station. There he saw Sonia Nicholas, a police inquiry officer, and Detective Constable Hannah Paisley. As a result of them carefully listening to C, it was recognised that he might be a victim of trafficking. Arrangements were made to secure his protection and his well-being. Subsequently, each of you was arrested, charged, prosecuted, and convicted. C suffered a loss of his personal autonomy because you kept his passport and exercised control over his movements and his basic human needs. He was put in fear that he would be subject to the forced removal of his kidney without any appropriate aftercare. Now he is scared to return home to Nigeria. As he puts it, he is having to start his life again. I considered that a substantial compensation order might well be appropriate for the loss and damage he has been caused by your conduct. I asked the Crown to inquire as to C's attitude towards such an order. That is because, in some cases, victims of crime do not want compensation from the offender, and an award of compensation might even risk causing further distress. A police officer carefully explained the meaning, reason, and purpose of a compensation order to C. He immediately responded that he did not wish to entertain compensation. The officer says, quotes, "C spoke with moral conviction. Despite understanding the material benefit receiving compensation may have for him, he adamantly said he did not need or want anything from the bad people. He no longer wants them to have any involvement with him in any capacity, irrespective of the financial benefit he stood to make." C said that he wanted to put this entire ordeal behind him and move on with his life. He believes this to be the right and fair thing to do. End quotes. 2 days later, the officer spoke to C again. He remained, quotes, resolute with his decision regarding compensation and insisted he had not and did not wish to change his mind on the subject. End quotes. Of course, I respect C's views. In the circumstances, it is not appropriate to make a compensation order. The Crown seek an order for costs under Section 18 of the Prosecution of Offences Act 1985. I adjourn that application and will make directions for its determination. In the case of each of you, I impose the statutory surcharge order in the sum of £190. In each of your cases, the offence you committed is so serious that neither a fine nor a community sentence can be justified. A life sentence is not appropriate, and I do not consider that you are dangerous so as to merit the imposition of an extended sentence. Accordingly, in each case I pass a determinate custodial sentence with the shortest term that is commensurate with the seriousness of the offence, taking account of the aggravating and mitigating features. You will each serve part of the sentence in custody before being released on licence. When you are released, you will be on licence until the end of your sentence. You must comply with the terms of the licence and commit no further offences. Otherwise, you will be liable to serve a further period in custody. The disclosure and barring service will include each of you in the lists of those who are barred from working with vulnerable adults or children. You may ask the service to be removed from the lists. The Sentencing Council has published guidelines for offences of human trafficking, contrary to Section 2 of the Modern Slavery Act 2015. You have each been convicted of conspiracy to commit that offence. The offence that you committed is closely related to the guideline offence. I reject the defence submissions that the guidelines are not apt to cover this particular form of trafficking. I have close regard to the guidelines. I turn to the question of harm. The transplant did not go ahead, but you each intended that it should go ahead, and you each intended the harm to the donor that would result, and which was eminently foreseeable. The donor would have faced invasive surgery with a small but still possible risk of death. He would have faced spending the rest of his life with only one kidney and without any funding for the required aftercare. He would have faced an increased risk of early onset raised blood pressure and of developing chronic kidney disease later in life, as well as a lifetime risk of needing dialysis himself or even a kidney transplant. He was at an increased risk because of his young age and his ethnicity. The removal of a kidney amounts to serious physical harm which has a substantial and long-term effect. Even if C had known that he was going to donate a kidney, I am sure that the risks had not been properly explained to him before he was brought to the UK. He was deceived and pressurised into donating a kidney. I reject the defence assertions that he consented in any meaningful sense. I am sure that he did not. There has been a substantial and long-term adverse impact on his daily life. He is scared to return to Nigeria because of the risk of retribution from those that are sympathetic to you. He lives a solitary existence and is separated from his life, his friends and his family as a direct result of this offence. This all amounts to Category 2 harm within the meaning of the Sentencing Council's guidelines. I do not accept the Crown's submission that the nature and extent of the harm justifies a movement to Category 1. But it does warrant an upwards adjustment within the category range. The fact that the transplant was not carried out merits a downwards adjustment, but the level of that adjustment is limited because, firstly, the gravamen of the offence is the agreement that you reached to exploit the donor. The offence was complete at that point. The offence focuses on the conduct of the offender rather than the harm that is caused to the victim. Secondly, you did not withdraw from the conspiracy. The only reason that the transplant did not take place was because the hospital refused to carry it out. In each case, your reaction was to seek to exploit others. And thirdly, quite apart from the harm that would have resulted from a transplant, C has suffered substantial actual harm of the nature that I have identified. I turn to culpability. You, Abina Abeta, fall within the high culpability bracket. You played a leading role in the offending. You identified the donor and controlled him throughout the process. You did so in the expectation of substantial financial reward. I reject your assertion that there is no evidence of substantial financial advantage. Your bank statements show otherwise and demonstrate that you were reliant on the funds you secured from the Ekramadu family to keep your head above water. You applied a high degree of planning and premeditation. For example, you arranged the visa, you secured a fabricated affidavit, and you organized a scheme to seek to deceive the clinicians and ultimately the Human Tissue Authority. You were thoroughly dishonest throughout. You kept a substantial sum of money that was paid by Ike Ekramadu and was intended for the donor. You, Ike Ekramadu, also fall within the high culpability bracket. You also played a leading role in the offending, and to a greater extent than Abina Abeta, who was acting through Diwe Ekramadu at your direction. You did so in order to secure a material advantage, namely a human kidney for your daughter. You were involved in a high degree of planning and premeditation. For example, you orchestrated the arrangements with your brother, Diwe. You sought to conceal your link to the payment of a donor reward by instructing a member of your staff to make the payment via a currency trader. You were involved in the corruption of a member of hospital staff. I reject the defence suggestion that you were naive as to offers or payments of a reward to the donor, or that you only joined the conspiracy at a late stage. I am satisfied so that I am sure that you were the driving force throughout. Reliance is placed on the fact that you had no contact with C or Abina Abeta. That is true, but it is an indicator of the leading role you played, directing the overall operation, but keeping your distance by getting others to do your bidding. I accept that you were not directly involved in the fabrication of an affidavit and that you told Sonia not to sign it. Again, in context, that is consistent with the type of leading role you played. You well knew the sorts of steps that were being taken to try and pull the wool over the eyes of the doctors and regulators. I am satisfied that you, Beatrice Ekramadu, performed more limited functions under the direction of your husband. I accept the submission of Anu Mahindru King's Council that your family was patriarchal and you were deferential to your husband. Your role was primarily to adopt the cousin lie. There was, so far as you are concerned, some limited planning and premeditation. You committed the offence in the expectation of a material advantage, namely securing a kidney for your daughter. Your case falls at the cusp of lower and medium culpability. Before allowing for aggravating and mitigating factors, the applicable starting points are custodial sentences of 10 years in the case of Abina Abeta, 10 years and 6 months in the case of Ike Ekramadu, and 6 years in the case of Beatrice Ekramadu. Abina Abeta, stand up, please. There are aggravating features in your case. You deliberately targeted a victim who was particularly vulnerable due to his young age, his isolation from his immediate family, and his poverty. After the conspiracy to exploit C was thwarted, you continued to try and find another person to be exploited in the same way. As against that, you have no previous convictions, and you are a person of good character. I accept that you have done much good work as a medical doctor. You also have your own serious medical condition, as someone who has himself undergone a kidney transplant. I've taken account of the medical evidence. That does not suggest that your condition cannot be adequately managed in custody. I consider that the mitigating and aggravating factors are in balance. I sentence you to 10 years imprisonment, subject to allowing for the time for which you have been remanded in custody. You will spend 2/3 of that time in custody and will then be on licence until the end of your sentence. You can sit down, please. Senator Ike Ekramadu, stand up, please. There are substantial aggravating features in your case. You knew that the donor was vulnerable because of his young age and his poverty. You had a profound understanding of the impact of poverty because of the work you have done for the ECOA Foundation. You gave direct instructions to ensure that tight control was exercised over C. Once the transplant did not go ahead, you immediately sought to find another person to be exploited in the same way, rapidly managing to identify several potential candidates. As against that, you have your own ongoing health problems. You have no previous convictions and were a person of good character. I accept Mr. Hicks KC's description of you as having exceptionally positive good character, and that your conviction represents a very substantial fall from grace. You set up the ECOA Foundation and have funded that organisation, which undertakes a very great deal of valuable charitable work to help those living in poverty in Nigeria. At trial, there was a great deal of character witness testimony, including from Archbishop Emmanuel Chukwuma, the Archbishop for the Diocese of Enugu. I have been provided with a bundle of 51 pages of character statements for the purpose of sentencing. I have read all of them. They include statements from a former president of Nigeria, the current president of the Senate, the Bishop of Enugu, the Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of Nigeria, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. That evidence speaks to your role in helping to establish and maintain democracy in Nigeria, and also as an international peacemaker. The evidence also includes moving pleas advanced by some of those who have benefited from your generosity and good works, and also a moving statement from your daughter, Sonia. I take all of that into account. It amounts to substantial mitigation. You were motivated by the despair of your daughter's very serious illness. The weight to be attached to that factor is limited by reason of the fact that, as you recognized in your evidence, you could have sought a genuinely altruistic donation, including from a family member, albeit not Sonia's immediate siblings. After taking account of the aggravating and mitigating factors in your case, I impose a sentence of 9 years and 8 months imprisonment. Subject to allowing for the time which you have spent remanded in custody, you will serve 2/3 of the sentence in custody and will be on licence thereafter for the rest of the sentence. You can sit down. Dr. Beatrice Ekramadi, would you stand up, please? In your case, I adopt a starting point of 6 years custody. I do not consider that the aggravating factors that are present in the case of your co-defendants apply to you. You were not directly involved in the identification of the donor, and the evidence does not show that you were directly involved in the attempts to identify a further donor after the transplant did not go ahead. I take account of all the mitigating features that Mr. Mahindra KC has identified, and the content of the thorough and helpful pre-sentence report prepared by Jessica Stephen of the Probation Service. You are a person of good character. You helped set up the ECOA Foundation with your husband, and you have been closely involved with its important charitable work. Much of the character evidence I have read applies also to you. You were also motivated by the desperate plight of your daughter and by maternal love. Further, in your case, I accept that although Sonia is an adult, you have substantial caring responsibilities towards her. Your incarceration will have a significant impact on her, in that she will no longer be able to rely on your presence as a source of care and support. Having regard to those factors, I impose a sentence of 4 years and 6 months imprisonment. You have spent 234 days on an electronically monitored curfew between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. I specify that the credit period for the purposes of Section 240A of the Criminal Justice Act 2003 is 117 days. So that period shall count towards your sentence. Subject to that, and subject to allowing for the time you have spent remanded in custody, you will serve 1/2 of your sentence in custody.
Oya, ẹgbẹ́ mi wọlé. Okay, ó dúró ni. Kò ì parí ni. Tó. Èké èkéré màdù. Gbogbo tútó pa pátá òun lẹ gbọ́ ní inú fídíò yẹn. Àti ẹ̀wọ̀n tí wọ́n dá fún. Gbogbo ìgbésẹ̀ tí wọ́n gbé ní Nàìjíríà láti fi save ẹ̀ òun náà lẹ gbọ́ yẹn. Senate president kọ lẹ́tà. Àjọ gbogbo àwọn àgbáríjọ Senate wọ́n kọ lẹ́tà. Speaker Fẹ́mi Gbàjàbíàmílà ó kọ lẹ́tà. Former president kan Nàìjíríà ó ti yẹ kẹ́ mẹ́ni tó jẹ́ ìyẹn náà kọ lẹ́tà. Gbogbo wọn kọ lẹ́tà. Wọ́n láwọn ti rí. Wọ́n categorize lẹ́tà yẹn kún wípé àwọn fi sí pé ìwà ẹ̀dá bẹ́ẹ̀ tí yóò ní káwọn release ẹ̀ ní gbogbo tútó pa. Ọdún tó kọjá ó ní nǹkan yẹn ṣẹlẹ̀ láti bí February ọdún tó kọjá. Àmọ́ di tí gbogbo ayé mọ̀ ó di tọ́rọ́ fọ́kálé nínú ọdún yìí. Ó di tí gbogbo ayé gbọ́ nínú ọdún yìí. Nígbàtí gbogbo ọ̀nà tí wọ́n gbà láti cover tí ó ṣiṣẹ́. Exactly ọdún kan lénìí òun rè tọ́mọ yẹn lọ sí police station ó sá lọ ni. Nígbàtí wọ́n náà fẹ́ dá padà sí Nàìjíríà kán lọ yọ kidney yẹn. Nígbà tí ní kò possible ní ọ̀hún. Wọ́n fẹ́ fi style gbé ọmọ yẹn padà. Lọ́mọ bá sá lọ police station. Ibẹ̀ lọ̀rọ̀ ti búrẹ́kẹ́. Now the boy is afraid to come back to Nigeria now. Ó lóun ò lè wá nítorí wọ́n á pa òun. Lódodo dẹni. Àwọn olólùfẹ́ àtìláwí kẹ́ tó mọ tó ṣẹlẹ̀ wọ́n fi lánàá. You see, ẹ wo nǹkan tí George yẹn kà lẹ́jọ́ láti fi yé wa pé there is justice in that country. Why not Nigeria? Gbogbo àwa adájọ́, gbogbo àwa olùgbẹ́jọ́, lọ́yà, ẹ jẹ́ kí lè jẹ́ ẹ̀kọ́ fún wa. Káwa náà sọ pé the change must begin with me. Ẹ jẹ́ káwa náà ready láti fìdájọ́ òdodo. Kò sí nǹkan tó yẹ kó máa ṣe tó ṣe tó láti mọ̀ wọ́n rò pé Nàìjíríà làwọn wà. Ẹ gbọ́ gbogbo tí adájọ́ yẹn pa tó kà wípé wọ́n pa níwà. Ó bí dàtà wọn wà Nàìjíríà. But ṣọlọ́run àtijọ́ èmi ò tẹ̀ sínú ẹni bá bá sọ ọ̀tọ̀ ọlọ́run kan ṣo náà ló wà. Kò sọ ọlọ́run àtijọ́ kò sọ ọlọ́run ti sìn. Bọ́lọ́run bá ṣetán láti múyàn gbogbo ayé yóò lè dá dúró. Ẹ wo bí wọ́n ṣe kọ́lọ́kọ́lọ́. Ó ní family mbẹ́ tó jẹ́ doctor. Òun àti doctor kan wọ́n jọ lọ school náà labroad ni. Wọ́n jọ liaise mọ́ra wọn àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ àti bẹ́ẹ̀ àti oríṣiríṣi tútọ́pa. At the end of the day orí kó ọmọ yẹn yọ. Ẹ̀gbọ́n tí doctor yẹn sọ pé kò bá ṣẹlẹ̀ sí ọmọ yẹn ká ló donate kidney ẹyọ kan. Then kílẹ̀ náà jẹ́ ẹ̀kọ́ fún àwọn èèyàn wa tó jẹ́ pé èmi mọ̀ àwọn kan tí wọ́n lọ́ ń ta páàtì ara wọn. Wọ́n ní ibì kan wà náà máa gé ẹsẹ̀. Wọ́n á lọ ta pátákó ẹsẹ̀ wọn. Wọ́n á lọ ta tó lọ ń fún yín. Ẹ ṣe wá sọ di business kẹ́ máa tẹ̀yà ara yín. 3.something million náà fi bẹ ọmọ yẹn bí tá a bá ti lè yọ kidney ẹ̀. Máa yẹn ní future ó ní kidney ẹyọ kan yẹn máa affect ọmọ yẹn. Wọ́n á lọ lè kọ́ sí kidney stone fún. Ó lè kọ́ sí kidney problem fún. Ó lè di tọ́mọ yẹn máa gba dialysis every year tí èkú. Bẹ̀tọ́ ló ń bọ́ ọmọ yẹn ṣe. Gbogbo owó tán fi lọ kò jẹ́ káyé tóbi lójú ẹ̀mí òun. Kò wo ìyà tóun jẹ́ ńgbà tóun wà lÉkòó. Ó lóun ò ní ìdòwò ìkà. Òun ò ní ìdòwò wọn. Wọ́n ní kọ́sìn ẹ̀ ni. Wọ́n ti ṣe gbogbo òwe tó fi hàn pé kọ́sìn ni wọ́n ò dẹ̀ tán wọn bọ́mọ yẹn sọ. Bá a ṣe ń ṣe nìyẹn Nàìjíríà. Àfi tá a bá change. Lèmi ṣe dúró pé mo wo kéèsì yẹn sí kéèsì Adedoyin. Mo wo kéèsì yìí mo wò sí kéèsì Adedoyin. Ṣé wọ́n fi gbá kan bọ̀ kan nú lu tiwọn? Rárá o. Kódà ńgbà tá a gbéṣe Nàìjíríà dọ́hùn tí wọ́n gbéṣe Nàìjíríà dọ́hùn tí wọ́n gbìyànjú láti lóríṣiríṣi àlùmọ̀kọ̀rọ̀ yìí gbogbo ẹ̀ ní máa yẹn ń bá wọn fàyọ́ kọ̀ọ̀kan ó yọ kó mú òkun àtẹ̀dọ̀sọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni ó ní irọ́ leléyìí eléyìí ò rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ní Nàìjíríà ti wá bó lọ́hùn ṣé wọ́n ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ àdúrà mi sọ lọ́hùn ó ní kí dídùn so kó jẹ́ dídùn lọ́sọ̀ọ́sọ níjọ́ tí màmá bá máa dájọ́ that is my prayer ẹ jẹ́ ń dúró báyìí náà o ẹ jẹ́ kí ẹ̀kọ́ tó ga kó yọ fún wa nínú kéèsì tá a wò tán yìí o ẹ jẹ́ kó jẹ́ ẹ̀kọ́ ńlá ni kó jẹ́ fún wa o láyọ̀ o.
kó ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣe rí ọmọ aráyé ẹ̀ wá gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí tún lè gidi gan ọ̀rọ̀ yìí mọ̀lẹ́ ó gbẹnu tán. ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ ńlá lè yọ. ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ bójú wò ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ bójú tó ọ̀tá fà sókè tó yí dó borí bọ́bá ayé orí kò ṣẹ̀yìn Ọlọ́run bọ́mọ aráyé bá ṣiṣẹ́ ibi tán wọ́n á tún máa ní pẹ́jálẹ̀ jáǹjẹ́ sanra Olódùmarè ó máa fi àkọ́kàn jẹ̀dá ènìyàn ló sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn ọ̀dà tó ń níjà ẹ máa wí pé